Many people who meet me for the first time are often surprised to learn that I am deaf. I remember growing up in elementary school, my teachers would wear these big, bulky FM microphone systems, and while I could hear them pretty well, those FM systems didn't address a key problem. Many of my videos were not closed captioned. In effect, they were not accessible. The California Community College Chancellor's Office defines accessibility as a standard which ensures students with disabilities are able to use and access their instructional materials as easily as students without disabilities. Unfortunately, we know from a litany of lawsuits filed by groups like the National Federation for the Blind that thousands of Americans, college students with disabilities, continue to confront inaccessible instructional materials. In my dissertation research, I sought to address this problem by answering two key research questions. First, how do we measure student perceptions of the accessibility of their materials? And second, are these perceptions of accessibility related to students learning in a course? To answer these two questions, I used a survey-based methodology, surveying 80 college students with disabilities. In the first part of my study, I developed a scale to measure student perceptions of accessibility by drawing on 4 accessibility criteria developed through the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. The first criteria of perceivability deals with how compatible materials are with students' working senses. Second, operable materials are materials which students can easily get to work. Third, understandable refers to whether materials can be understood and work in predictable ways. Lastly, robust materials are compatible with students' assistive technologies. Using a technique called factor analysis, I was able to create a 29-item survey scale, which can be used to measure students' perceptions of how accessible their materials are. In the second part of my study, I then took this scale and gave it to students and asked them to answer those items while also answering items about their perceptions of their learning in a course. Using a statistical analysis called regression, I came to the unambiguous results that perceived accessibility in a course is a strong predictor of perceived learning. In other words, the more accessible student materials are, the more they learn in a course. Overall, there are 2 key conclusions from my study. First, we finally have an instrument which we can use to measure accessibility on a systematic scale. And secondly, we now have quantitative, systematic evidence that is unambiguous about the positive relationship between accessibility and student success. In short, it's time to take the battle for accessibility out of the courtroom and into the classroom.